Well, with the Talking Dictionary, I think that what's really cool about it is that, you know, as we or I'm learning new words, I'm able and we're able to add new words to the dictionary, whereas the printed dictionary, you know, once you print it and then you have to do a second edition and it costs a lot of money. And also with the online dictionaries, you can embed videos, you can do images. So it's more than just a Talking Dictionary, it's like encyclopedia, right? Because also we could give an example of how the sentence is used, and also plants, for instance, we incorporate how they're used in the community for ceremonies, healing, and whatnot. So it is very, very flexible and dynamic, which the printed dictionary, you know, it's very limited. So I think that's what I really like about the online dictionary, that it is versatile. You know, you keep adding words, but also sometimes when we need to correct some things that we might have made a mistake, we can go back and then change it and add different ways that different communities say the same words, whereas in printed dictionary, it's really hard to do. So that's what I like about it. Of course, I mean, as I mentioned earlier, that, you know, the feature that I really like is the embedded videos, but also one of the things that we've done is also embed tweets, right? And now I've asked some of the students to help us with creating an Instagram. So in the future, I hope that we could link it to Instagram, to TikTok, to YouTube channels, and that could, you know, all the work that we're doing that are different places. Hopefully we can bring it all together through the Talking Dictionaries and making linkages. I mean, I'm not an expert in technology, but, you know, that's one of the things I would really like to see, bring everything that we've been creating for all this year, bring it together in one place. Yeah, the major resource that I use, it is a course. It's an online course called Cali Chiu, Valley Zapotec course, which is also online, and that's my primary book online that I use to teach Dizhsa, which again, it is in Spanish and English, and there is a link that also would take students to the Talking Dictionary. So all of these materials are pretty much interlinked. So if they want to look up for a word, or rather how to say a word that's on the vocab, on the Cali Chiu, they can also go and click on the word, so they can listen how to say that specific word. Sure. I think that one of the ways that I've used, for instance, the Talking Dictionary and then to teach in my classroom is, for instance, when I'm talking about, there is a tree which is called pirul in Spanish, and I think it's a pepper tree in English. It has different functions, and one of the things that I always bring out to the students and showing them what it looks like. And also we have a video in the Talking Dictionary, and also pictures describing the function of each part of the tree. So I think that sometimes some students are better learners through visual teaching materials, and I can do that either by showing the picture or bringing up the video so they can look at, you know, what this plant looks like and also how it is used. So that's one of the things that I think that, again, that's really nice about the Talking Dictionary, that you know, if you just want a quick example, you can go and then bring one particular word with all these elements embedded in them. Well, we have both, tagging dictionaries. Oh, it's trilingual to begin with, right? So it doesn't really matter whether I'm teaching in the U.S. in English or here in Mexico in Spanish. I think that's a very valuable resources because aside from the Cali Chiu, which is the pedagogical material that I use for teaching Zapotec, I think the tagging dictionary is really quick if students, they just want to look for a word, right? And also if they want to learn how to pronounce it, or they forgot how to pronounce it, they can always go back, search in the tagging dictionary the word, and then it's readily available to them to be used in looking up words or how to pronounce a word without having to go to the Cali Chiu, for instance, So that's, in that sense, students have used that it's been very useful to the students in both of my classes that I've, in the U.S. and Mexico as well. I guess in Oaxaca, it's the fact that a lot of, well, in my experience, I've taught mostly Zapotec people the language, and some of them speak it, some of them don't speak it. And it is really interesting and challenging to make them understand the value of the language, because a lot of them, they're convinced that, Zapotec or indigenous language is not, it has no value in higher education. So when I first started teaching it here in Oaxaca, it was a required course, and then through the process I had to really put it in historical context and talk about my minoritized languages and language displacement, so they can really understand the importance of the language. Whereas in the States, I think that a lot of people already understand that concept, and I think that it's just trying to also explain, right, that Zapotec is not a single language, but a family of languages that that sometimes is hard for students in the U.S. Like, well, but it's Zapotec, right? Like, yes, it's Zapotec, but it's not a language. It is a family of languages. So, and also the fact that if they learn one variety, also they don't understand that it would not be, they wouldn't communicate with other varieties, for instance, from the norte, the sur, and the eastern Zapotec. So, there are different challenges, but I think that in the end, in the process, I should say, of teaching the course, I think that they do get it, but it's just a little bit complicated because of, in Mexico, the ideologies about indigenous language, and also in the state, the lack of understanding what is Zapotec. I think that, at least for me, the more important thing about the tagging dictionary is about how the community has used it, because many people don't know that there is a tagging dictionary that it exists for them. So, for example, I've gotten several requests in my Facebook to help parents for their kids to learn Dizhsa, and they didn't know anything about the tagging dictionary. So one of the things I will send them the link, and then through the tagging dictionaries that the community has been able to help their kids to learn their language. So in that sense, it's one of the mechanisms that we have now. Because as you may or might not know, that you cannot really find a course readily available to the community. So this is one of the few resources that we have for the community, and it's completely free. It's online, so they can learn it at their own pace, and then at no cost as well. Sure. I've had courses here at Jardín Pochote with the community, and I've used the Cali Chiu and talking dictionaries. And one of the first things that people are surprised is that the fact that Zapotec can be written, that has an orthography, that has grammar, verbs. So that has been very useful because the way that I think the Cali Chiu is written methodically, it really makes sense. So when people begin to learn, or think about verbs, subjects, pronouns, and they find it there, and they feel like it's a real language. So I think that in that sense, it's a very powerful instrument, right? Because for many of them, they have not been aware that Zapotec has been written, they're learning about grammar. So when they find out that there is this course and there are these books available to them, it validates the language they speak. And also in addition to that, they feel that what they have been told, that the indigenous language has not been written or is not a real language, I think that really changed their perspective, and they began to see their language and themselves with different eyes. So I think that has become a very powerful instrument for the community.